Got it. All right. Now we're about 4 minutes late on Facebook. Nice to see you. Come to Zoom. We'd love to see you. Even if we don't see you, you can stay in the black screen and just be on here. We know you're here and you can pay attention. You can even like write little things in chat that we read. I won't read anything on Facebook Live. I'm not looking at it. It's facing the other direction. I have no idea what's happening. I assume you're there listening right now. But even if you're not, I got people here on the screen with me on Zoom. So let's go. Let's do a quick reminder of what we've talked about. Chapter 1 was this great vision. Right? Yeah. And it's beautiful and fiery and weird and all that stuff. And then chapter 2 and 3, some letters / prophecies / just something amazing. Even this story that he's telling about who they're supposed to be. That's chapter 2 and chapter 3, 7 different churches, 7 being a very important number, right? All the numbers. Dr. Dalrymple came on and tried to explain a bunch of different things, talking about myriads, thousands, and 3 and 7 and multiples of that, stuff like that. We're going to keep seeing that throughout. So 7 is very important. And chapter 4, which is where we're at now, we see something in the center of everything else. What is this vision of? This is our next section. Chapters 1 through 3 are over here. Now we're doing 4 through 7, right? So that's next. That's what we're getting rid of. This is all about the seals. But what's chapter 4 about?
Heaven,
The throne.
the throne.
Heaven
Yeah,
and the
the
throne.
throne.
Exactly. So, yeah. So we have the throne in the middle. And then what do we find around it? They're like these other circles with like certain stones, right? And rainbows. These are like super shiny stones. Shiny. What's around that?
Elders.
Creatures.
Yes, you're right.
20
Crystals.
Creatures.
24 other thrones.
Yes.
Yeah,
24
7.
other thrones.
Yeah, flaming torches, 7 spirits of God.
Okay. Yep. All right. So all of this is in there, and we have
Elders.
this next group of, we got the diamond, the throne, the sardis, the different rainbow, the 7 lamps that Steve just talked about are there.
Yeah.
We have the sea of glass, right? We talked about like the sea,
Yeah.
and then that was terrible. But it's not a pitchfork. It's it's menorah. It's the 7 lamps that are there. All of those are there as well. And then we've got the 24 other thrones around the outside, which we're going to hear more about. The elders on these other thrones. So where we're picking this up is you're going to look at Revelation, but I'm not going to take you there first. I'm going to take you to Ezekiel. So let's go to Ezekiel and let's read, because no one ever reads Ezekiel because it's freaking weird. Like there is some stuff going on here that just no idea. Everyone's afraid of this book. So Ezekiel chapter 1. So if you find Psalms and Proverbs, then you get starts the prophets, the major prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel. Why are they the major prophets? What makes them major?
The
Old
length of the
Testament?
book.
They're verbose.
The length of them. Good. They're verbose. They're big. Okay. They're not more important than the other prophets. They're just bigger. Is Daniel a major prophet?
Size matter.
What was that?
I said size matters.
Size does matter. That's right. One of those times it definitely matters. All right. Is Daniel a major prophet or a minor prophet?
Minor.
I don't know.
Ah, excellent. Yeah, so you're all going to learn something tonight, even Travis. All right. It's neither one. I tricked you. Okay. Now, the person Daniel is a great prophet, I guess, but the book Daniel does not exist in the prophets at all. It's part of the writings, the Ketuvim. All right. Prophets is the Nevi'im. Remember the Tanakh? We've done it before. Just quick reminder. The Tanakh is the Torah, the Nevi'im, or the prophets, and the Ketuvim which is the writings. So this is the first 5 books, then the Nevi'im prophets, which includes Joshua, Judges, Samuel, Kings, all that stuff, as well as Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, as well as Amos, Habakkuk, Hosea, Zephaniah, Zechariah, Malachi, the 12. Okay, Daniel's not in that list anywhere. He's in this one, the Ketuvim, Psalms, Proverbs, Song of Songs, Chronicles, Daniel. They're in the writings. Okay, this is all free information, extra. The rest of the class costs. So put your money in. All right, all the money's in. Okay, so we're past this now. Okay, so we are in a major prophet, that is length, Ezekiel, and we're going to start right in the beginning, and we're going to read this chapter because you need this to understand the book of Revelation. In the 30th year, in the 4th month of the 5th day, while I was among the exiles by the Kebar River, the heavens were open, and I saw visions of God. So we already have some connections, don't we?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so this is the Kebar River. That means they are in Babylon, Assyria. They are outside of the land. They're somewhere else by the Chebar or Kebar, the Kebar River. Okay, so they're there. It's the same one you've read about it in the Psalms, right? They hung up their harps. There's no more singing. It's what Lamentations is based like. It's just this, we're in exile. We're away from the land. Well, they're away from the land, and God's about to speak to them. So now the heavens opened, and saw visions of God. On the 5th of the month, it was the 5th year of the exile of King Jehoiakim, the word of the Lord came to Ezekiel the priest, the son of Buzi, by the Kebar River in the land of the Babylonians. There in the hand of the Lord, there the hand of the Lord was upon them. Okay, so we got the intro. I looked and saw a windstorm coming out of the north, an immense light. The center of the fire looked like glowing metal, and in the fire was what looked like 4 living creatures. Okay, so we're already seeing some connections, right? So flashing lightning, brilliant light, fire, glowing metal, all that stuff is giving us a picture of the blazing eyes, right? All that stuff we've already seen a little bit of that. And we've already seen right now, even around the circle, we've got shiny stones, rainbows, light shining everywhere. And the fire was what looked like 4 living creatures. In appearance, their form was that of a man, but each of them had 4 faces and 4 wings. Their legs were straight, their feet were like those of a calf, and gleamed like burnished bronze. Again, that bronze we've heard before. Under their wings, on their 4 sides, they had hands of a man. All 4 of them had faces and wings, and their wings touched one another, and each one went straight ahead. They did not turn as they moved. Okay. So, I mean, we're already got some weirdness going on here, right? We've got multiples of wings. We've got hands under the wings. We've got calf-like legs, but they were straight. Everything is gleaming. 4 faces. I assume that means 1 on each side, so they don't even have to turn. And one went straight ahead, and they didn't turn as they moved. Their faces look like this. Each of the 4 had the face of a man, and on the right side, each had the face of a lion, and on the left, the face of an ox. Each one also had the face of an eagle. Such were their faces. Their wings were spread out upward. Each had 2 wings, one touching the wing of another creature on either side, and 2 wings covering its body. Okay, you might remember another prophet who sees a picture of similar creatures, but they have 3 sets of wings instead of 2, right? And it says that with one, they covered their feet, with one, they covered their eyes, upper, I believe, and with one, they flew. Well, with 2, 2, 2, and 2. So they had 6 wings. Right? This one only has 4. Okay. Don't know what that means, but it's out there. Each one went straight ahead. Wherever the spirit would go, they would go, without turning as they went. The appearance of living creatures were like burning coals of fire or like torches. Fire moved back and forth among the creatures. It was bright, and lightning flashed out of it. The creatures sped back and forth like flashes of lightning. So we just got this, okay, like lightning strikes are just going all over.
As I looked at the living creatures, I saw a wheel on the ground beside each creature with its 4 faces. This was the appearance and structure of the wheels. They sparkled like chrysolite, and all 4 looked alike. Each appeared to be made like a wheel intersecting a wheel. As they moved, they would go in any one of the 4 directions the creatures faced. The wheels didn't turn about as the creatures went. Their rims were high and awesome, and all 4 rims were full of eyes all around. So we got a wheel within a wheel. I guess that's like a coaster, like like a office chair that can go any direction, kind of. It's got a wheel going different directions. And then there's eyes on the wheels because it wasn't freaky enough. When the living creatures moved, the wheels beside them moved. And when the living creatures rose from the ground, the wheels also rose. Wherever the spirit would go, they would go, and the wheels would rise along with them because the spirit of living creatures was in the wheels. When the creatures moved, they also moved. When the creatures stood still, they stood still. And when the creatures rose from the ground, the wheels rose along with them, because the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. Spread out above the heads of the living creatures what looked like an expanse, or a firmament, or a ruach, right? That gap. Sparkling like ice and awesome. Under the expanse, their wings were stretched out one towards another, and each of the 2 wings covered its body. When the creatures moved, I heard the sound of their wings like the roar of rushing waters, like the voice of the Almighty, like the tumult of an army. When they stood still, they lowered their wings. Then there came a voice from above the expanse over their heads as they stood with lowered wings. Above the expanse, over their heads, was what looked like the throne of sapphire, and high above the throne was a figure like that of a man. I saw that from what appeared to be the waist up, he looked like glowing metal, as if full of fire, and that from there down he looked like fire, and a brilliant light surrounded him, like the appearance of a rainbow in the clouds on a rainy day. So was the radiance around him. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. When I saw it, I fell face down, and I heard the voice of one speaking. And the next section is where Ezekiel gets called to ministry, just like in Isaiah, where those angels came. Chapter 6 is where Isaiah gets called into ministry. They see some sort of a vision. This is their call into doing something, being something. Okay, so now we go back to Revelation. We've got this idea in our mind. We're in Revelation chapter 4. Revelation. And we will remind us of where we have been. So he looked, he heard first, the voice came. So there's doors standing open. There's a voice like a trumpet, okay, a loud voice. And it says, come here, I'm going to show you this place. And he was in the spirit, and there was a throne. We've seen that. The one who sat on it had the appearance of jasper and carnelian and a rainbow and an emerald, resembling an emerald, encircled the throne, surrounding the throne, 24 other thrones. We've got our picture here. And seated on them were 24 elders, and they were dressed in white, and they had crowns of gold on their heads. From the throne came flashes of lightning, rumblings, and peals of thunder. Before the throne, 7 lamps were blazing. There were 7 spirits of God. These are the 7 spirits of God. Also before the throne, there was what looked like a sea of glass, clear as crystal. A lot of these connection points, right? They're not exact, but you see a lot of fire. You see a lot of shiny stones. You see a sea of glass, kind of like maybe the expanse of ice that was there before. Maybe it's just a smooth, clear place. The 7 lamps were there. In the center around the throne, I think that's where we ended up, chapter with verse 6. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. So around the throne, on each side of the throne are 4 living creatures full of eyes in front and behind. Sound familiar?
Oh yeah,
No wheels,
just like
But-
yeah.
but eyes. So it's definitely not the same. I'm not looking at the same thing, but you can see that there's something connecting these things. The first living creature, like a lion, the second living creature, like an ox, the third living creature with the face of a man, and the fourth living creature, like a flying eagle. And the 4 living creatures, each of them with 6 wings, are full of eyes all around and within, and day and night they never cease to sing, holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. All right, so, okay, you've read it. Let's figure out the connections here. What's happening? What are these creatures? Or maybe not what are they? You don't have to figure out what they are, but let's look at them. What's the difference between Ezekiel's creatures and Revelation's creatures? So here we got Zeke, and here is Revelation. Okay, so tell me something about either one of them. How many faces in Revelation?
Two.
Two faces?
No, four in Ezekiel, I'm sorry.
Okay, so 4 faces in Ezekiel. How many faces in Revelation?
4. 4.
Well,
One,
yes.
yeah, but
Yes.
one per, yeah,
Right,
Yeah.
1 per creature.
yeah,
So on this one, it's each one of them have 4 faces, it seems like. Like there's one here, one here, one here, and one here. Here, it's that there's 4 different creatures and they all have
Right.
different faces. Right, one's an eagle, one's an ox, one's, yeah, each one of those things. Okay, how many wings in Ezekiel?
4 in Ezekiel and 6 in Revelation.
All right, 6 wings here. Okay, and you can find whatever comparison points you want. Just make any ones you want. I just wrote a couple down. Okay, here the wheels have eyes. Here the wings have eyes, right? I think that's what I read. I just read it. Right, their bodies have eyes all over,
And inside the wings.
and inside their wings, yeah. Okay,
It's the same 4 faces, lion, ox, man, and eagle.
okay, so yeah, so same ones, which is ox, eagle, lion, man. Okay, 4 of them versus 4, yeah, versus each one having all the faces on there. So just to remind us of the call of Isaiah while we're here, Isaiah 6, chapter 2, maybe. Yep. Above him were seraphs, each with 6 wings. With 2 wings they covered their faces, with 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they were flying. And they were calling to one another, oh, holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of his glory. That's a little different than verse 8 in Revelation, isn't it? But it's pretty darn similar. And it says that the temple was filled with smoke, the threshold shook. Isaiah is really afraid. Then one of the seraphs flew to me. So it has a name here. It's called a seraph. Okay. Seraphs have these wings. So this one's called a seraph in Isaiah. Okay, and a seraph is in Isaiah probably, I mean, there's some controversy on this, but a seraph is generally like a burning flying snake, probably. A snaky flying burning thing. Okay, so there's a lot of, let's see, so fire, snake, and flying. Which is interesting. I'm just going to throw this out here just to mess with you, and then we're going to move off of it real quick. But if in mythology there are these seraph flying snake things, there's a particular story about a snake pretty early on in the Bible that you guys have heard before,
Genesis.
probably. It's like what,
Genesis, maybe,
yeah, Genesis.
One.
Good job, Steve.
1, maybe,
Chapter 3, actually, yeah, close. So in Genesis 3, this snaky thing comes along. And do you remember what the curse is?
Mhm.
What's the curse on the snake?
He would crawl on the ground forever.
yeah,
Oh, but not fly.
And so our immediate thoughts are when we think about snakes is that obviously there was a story in mythology where the snake lost its legs. But what if
in heaven, yeah.
What if it wasn't the legs that he lost? What if it was the wings that he lost?
Yeah,
And this flying burning serpent is now forced to slither around on the ground instead of fly. An idea. Just
Didn't ancient antiquity worship the phallic symbol? It's some kind of like a symbol, and the snake represents that. Is that
in Egyptian theology, that some people think the snake represents that fertility. Yeah.
also? And I was thinking because right here the snake is in here. It's in the beginning of the Bible. It's representing something negative in the fall of man, but it's also something holy. And I correlated that to the morning star, where I believe it's in Isaiah 14. But in Revelation, it's the morning star is Christ. So it's negative and then positive. Anyways, I don't know. That doesn't probably mean anything. But
Well, yeah, when we get to the morning star, we could talk about that if you want. But yeah, the Isaiah passage about the morning star, right? It is perfectly legit, right, for the Revelation passage to not use an Old Testament thing and to do something different with it. We have to determine whether they're grabbing hold of it and using it the same way. Okay, because they're not always going to be doing that. But perhaps in this case, the morning star is supposed to have a connection, even if it's a reversal of the idea, which when we get to that, we'll look at in more detail if you want to. Maybe you'll be the one teaching on it.
well, I feel like also this was like a reversal too. Like, you know, it's this negative, the snake's a negative thing. Now it's, you know, here it's like the image of something holy.
Right. Well, the snake becomes a negative thing in the Genesis 3 story, right?
Right.
It's not
Right.
automatically, it's just a creature, like one of God's creatures, but it's a room, right? It has wisdom, like beyond any of the other ones. It's more shrewd is what your version says, but it's actually a room. It's the word for wisdom. So it has a lot of wisdom. So maybe it's a heavenly creature that comes down with wisdom to say, hey, you can be like us, like the gods. Maybe. So there's a whole view out there. Those of you who've read like Heiser and things of that nature. If you've ever read Michael Heiser, he talks about some of that stuff. Not sure I'm fully on board, but
We're kind of getting off track, but I just like the morning star. It was at one point you have this image of the Satan that's this beautiful, like, you know, the most beautiful angel, and he's fallen because he wanted to be like God, you know. Anyway,
right, which I don't think is what Isaiah 14 is about, but it might be a bounce off of that myth, like the Hey Dad myth. Is that right? Hey Dad? Now I can't remember. We've talked about this here, and now I can't remember. I feel like it's the Hey Dad myth of the shining star, the bright morning star. And so that was brought into the Isaiah and the Ezekiel myth, probably brought in there, and then they used it in a new way. So to describe the king of Assyria and the king of
Fire.
Tyre. Good job. Thank you. Couldn't remember. So why you come along. Yep. All right. So that's what's happening. We got the seraph. Maybe the seraph is this creature in Revelation. We don't know, but there's something weird about this creature. And they all praise God in Isaiah and in Ezekiel and in Revelation. And they all say pretty similar things. All right. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. And we're going to have that tripartite thing that's going to go throughout the book here too, right? Who was and is to come. You're going to get that kind of connections. So what's John doing here? He's obviously not grabbing the story perfectly. Is that okay? I mean, shouldn't he be a little bit more close to his Old Testament people? Like if he's gonna quote Old Testament, he needs to quote it right.
Yeah, but didn't he write this a couple hundred years later?
He did, yeah, more than a
So
couple.
I mean, couldn't it? We
600.
lose something. Okay, couldn't we lose something in translation and time?
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Okay.
So maybe it's a translational difference.
Is this assuming that he's not having an actual vision and seeing this? I mean, like, he's just because
Mhm.
Good point.
that's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
So if he's literally seeing this, right? Remember, there's always going to be a question when we're doing hermeneutics. We're going to ask, what is the story trying to get us to think about? And then what actually is happening? They might be the same thing, they might not be. Right? So we've talked about, as we started all this, we talked about how apocalyptic writing works. So apocalyptic writing will say things like, I saw a vision. That's just the way you do things. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily mean he had a vision, unless your particular view of inspiration requires you to believe that. But let's assume he's really seeing something. He's really up, maybe not in heaven, but he's having some kind of ecstatic trance-like thing where he is seeing this. He's literally seeing it. Why is it that Ezekiel sees something and Isaiah sees something different and John sees kind of these things put together with a few other little things? Is it that there are all these different kinds of creatures? Some of the creatures have 6, some of them have 4, some of them have wings with eyes on them, some of them have bodies, some of them have wheels. There's just so many different kinds of creatures.
If you ask 3 witnesses to something that happened, what happened, you're going to get 3 somewhat different, somewhat similar, but somewhat different
That's it.
Okay,
stories.
that's right.
Perception bias, 100% perception bias.
Okay, so you're saying that perhaps Ezekiel, Isaiah, and John all saw the same thing, but as they record what they saw, they are misremembering what they actually saw.
How could you have words for these things?
Or they're not
They didn't-
misremembered. Or they're
Yeah, what they're describing is indescribable. So
Yeah, they don't have words for them.
Okay,
Something with
They're
4
doing the
faces,
best they
4
can.
heads. Yeah.
all right. So they're seeing something and they're trying to put words to it. Wheels within wheels. Eyes. I don't know what, like, this is what I see. They look like eyes. They're all over the wheels. Somebody else didn't see them on the wheels. They may not have even seen the wheels, but there might have been wheels, is what you're saying. There might have actually been wheels, but they didn't notice them, or it wasn't technically wheels. Maybe it was something a little different. So John left off that part of it while Ezekiel tried to describe it as wheels. John just decided not to say it. Or maybe they left their go-karts at home. They didn't bring the wheels with them this particular time.
I was going to say, yeah, maybe they saw different aspects of that holiness, that whole scene.
Right?
Maybe from their perspective, they saw something different based
That's
on
right.
what it
So-
could, probably.
Yeah, very possible.
maybe the details don't matter and it's about the broader message.
Okay, which is a different, slightly different nuance on all this. Maybe that doesn't matter. And so that they're all just trying to create the bigger picture, which is all seeing, all radiant, all lots of movement, and the ability to levitate some way, which gives you everything. Right? So they're just all trying to describe that in the way they do it. So let me ask you this. When people have visions today, which still happens, right, Josh? If you're doing mushrooms or something like that, you can definitely bring some things in there. Vaping, right, Steve? I mean, I assume you have some visions when you're vape. I don't know. Certainly, if you have the right Cuban at the right time, Cuban cigar, you can have some visions. Okay, so when we see creatures, angelic creatures, heavenly creatures, what do we normally see today? What's your picture of an angel or one of these creatures that's not God? What's your picture of?
A cherub, like a little baby angel, maybe?
Okay, so when you think of angels, that's what you think of, little babies?
Well,
I know some people draw
Michael
them.
is not. I
Michael's
think
not?
Michael's not. He's strong with stronger wings, and I see him.
How many
Think of little
angels, how many wings does he have?
Mhm.
No,
Just 2.
Just 2.
Just
Your
2.
picture of Michael is 2 wings.
And they are human in their face and body, etc. Except they fly.
Looks like a Greek god, you know. like
Okay, he looks like a Greek god. He's got like
Yeah.
the toga thing going.
Yeah.
All right, and he's chiseled, big, nice jawline.
I want to see that.
I
hand.
picture John Travolta in that
Sure you
movie.
do, Karen. Wait, what did you say? Someone said you picture something?
John
John Travolta.
Travolta in that movie.
John Travolta from, what was that one?
I forget what it was called, but he played an angel once, but not a very good looking one. But yeah,
Oh, I've seen
he,
that.
he could still dance.
That's
That movie was called Michael.
Michael.
Yeah, there
I
you
want
go.
to say
There was
this.
Michael.
I want to say this. One person, it's a hallucination. Two people, it's an affirmation. And when I had my vision, and I don't really talk, I'm always reticent to speak on it because it makes me look crazy. But my friend wrote a book on it, and it's out and it's published, and he's touring anyway. So I feel more comfortable about talking about it. But I just saw a bright white light. That was it. And I can tell you, I had a feeling, and I don't think the feeling I had really is as pertinent as the actual vision. But I mean, that's it. That was it. And I couldn't understand what the light was. And I tried to use logic and common sense, and it didn't, and everything fell off. And like you said, I can't describe it. So
There might have been spinning wheels.
yeah. Well, chariots of fire.
Heard people say that before though.
Yeah, the white light experience. I had that experience. And what is it? Does it matter? Does it make me no, I mean, it helps my faith out. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't lean on that too much, but I definitely, it helps me explore other walks of faith to inquire. And I'm not afraid of losing my faith in the Yahweh and the God of Israel. So I don't know if that means, I think a lot of people are reticent to speak on other faiths and look into those because from what I understand, they're afraid they might lose their faith. So for me, my faith is really strong in the God of Israel and in Jesus Christ. So having that vision, which I'm very uncomfortable talking about, but it's helped me tremendously and yeah, I don't really like to talk about it, but it's helped me a lot in the Upanishads, in like the Hindu religions. They have visions of chariots of like they're chariots. There's a throne. They're on fire, and I would say, I mean, in the axial period, about 6th century BC, Yahweh leaves the temple, and he leaves the temple in 586 BC. Okay, to be exact, and he leaves the temple, and they're in exile. And this is the axial period when you have people like Confucius, and you have people like the Zoroastrianism, which heavily influenced, by the way, King Cyrus and these things. The Persian Empire heavily influences apocalyptic language for the tribe of Israel. But you have these things that I think are inspired by prophets like Isaiah. I mean, I think they're stealing from the Bible, or maybe they're having I don't know. I know I'm going we're off right now. I'm sorry. But I feel like, why are these visions, this very similar to Ezekiel, Isaiah, and John, showing up in other religions that are very similar? They look similar. I don't know. I mean, this is very peculiar for me.
The spirit energy source. I mean, would answer that.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, our brains are electrical, right?
That's right.
So if you had a disparate energy source that circumvented the globe, the polar axis shifting, so to speak,
Then you would have
you could cause something that simultaneously across the globe caused exactly what you just spoke about, Josh.
Oh, what
All these different religions, all these different religious viewpoints had different kinds of visions.
Yeah. Could it be? I mean, my question was: could it be Yahweh revealing Himself?
It
I
could
don't
very
know.
well be. Could have been. Could be that he shifted the axis. I mean, remember, this cat can turn water to wine like that. He can do anything he wants.
This cat doesn't. Let me just real quick to get back into the box. Doesn't stop me from proclaiming the good news, like Jesus is Lord, and like it doesn't take anything away from the scripture, the Gospels, and I think that for me, anyways, the Book of Revelation is extremely incredible, and Jace is doing a wonderful job.
All right. Okay. Okay. So let's ask this then. because the Upanishads is what you made connection with, but the Upanishads are thousands of years old at this point, right? So we're not talking about something that is recent. We're talking about something in line with the same time periods back here, which is what you said. So I'm agreeing with you, right? So it's interesting that they would all have the same view of something in the same cultural context, right? So India, I mean, we're talking about Eastern ways of thinking about things. But none of you have had any visions, and you don't read visions today of anybody in this current culture that will ever have a vision of angels with multiples of wings or eyes or wheels, right? At least what I've read. I mean, you might be able to find something obscure that I don't know about, which is possible. But generally, when we have visions, people today, when they write about the visions that they see, they have something like what Fran said, right? A picture of somebody who is strong. I think, Fran, you said that, right? 2 wings, flying, like that's what they have. Because that's what the culture has in their mind right now. So when you watch TV and you see an angel, you're not going to see a weird angel like Ezekiel. You're going to see a very normal looking angel. He's only abnormal in the fact that he's got wings, like John Travolta, right? He just has
A
some
lot of
wings.
them are girls.
Or girls, yes, sometimes they look like women. Yeah. So those are the images you have, because that's the world that you're in. So if you're constantly reading or telling stories and you're hearing these kinds of stories, also you would imagine that's what you would begin to dream about or have visions about. So in that world, this is the way they've thought about it. 2,000 years later, they wouldn't be thinking about it the same way anymore. So John is about 600 years later. The story may have shifted. The way that they see angels at that time, 4 wings, 6 wings, these are just, it's just conglomeration of ideas that have been brought together, and he's still seeing something that we wouldn't see the same thing anymore. So the one possibility, like you guys have said, and there's multiple possibilities. One possibility is that he's actually seeing this, and they have lots of different viewpoints on what it is they're really seeing. The other one is, set that aside. The other one is one that is literature, right? That's, as they tell the story, they're going to define it in terms that the people in their time period would have understood. This is how they would have thought of these creatures. Okay, no longer were there creatures with faces on each side. Now we just have different faces. Okay, maybe just culture has shifted, time has gone by. But I think what all of us are going to end up agreeing on is that they're trying to get across a big picture view of whatever these creatures are. They're freaky, they're extra powerful. We won't say all powerful, but they can do something that normal people can't do. They represent something, ox, eagle, right? Lion, the same things that they represent. Okay, thoughts on what they represent, by the way?
Yeah, they're kind of the top of the heap in every, like man is the top of the pyramid.
Yep.
So
okay.
is an eagle. So is an ox.
Yep.
So is a lion. It's, it's the most fearsome. So it's the king, so to speak. That,
Okay.
yeah, I'd read a lot about what those represent, and that's what a couple, 3 or 4 different authors kind of made that point and kind of got to it different ways. So it seemed to make sense to me. So you
Yeah,
guys,
so-
what say you guys? You guys are way more wiser than I.
Have you guys anybody else thought about that before? Anything that comes immediately to mind, having never thought about it before?
The
Yeah.
eagle. Go ahead. Well, the eagle would represent authority. The Romans used it as their standard bearer. The lion would represent strength. Man could be a bunch of different things. And then the ox is industry, industrious, hardworking, that sort of a thing.
Good, yeah, that makes sense. Of course, the eagle probably doesn't represent Rome in.
No,
in,
but it's but denoting authority.
authority. Yeah. Yes. What kind of eagle? Yeah, that's a question. I assume a bald eagle with the American flag in the background.
Coors Light.
That's what I assume.
I know this has no connection, but it made me think of like Native American totem pole almost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, since you mentioned that, I've got the native translation here, and they a soaring eagle, a young bison, a human being, and a lion.
okay.
Is what the
That's
native,
pretty much the same except for the bison.
except for the bison, pretty much the same.
Yeah. And Native American probably be a wolf instead of a lion because there's no lions in North America, but
No, they stuck with lion. This
did
particular
they really?
this particular council translators stuck with.
Okay.
That is interesting that they chose that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've read some things that say just what you said, Travis, like the lion is strength, the ox is service, the eagle is not authority. I read like swiftness. I've heard the authority one too, but swift, quick. Man is all about intelligence. So it's the one with the brain, I guess, that doesn't just work by instinct. So, but either way, they're different categories, right? They're flying things. There's industry kinds of things like a domesticated animal. There's wild animals, and there's man. And you can see the different categories. It's supposed to represent like the entirety.
And there's four, so it doesn't represent the four quarters of, it's like earth, four corners of the earth or
Right.
what?
Yep. And you remember that, right? That even Rob talked about that a couple of weeks ago. Dr. Dalrymple talked about having anytime you see four, you're supposed to be thinking earth in some sense. These come from the earth. So because the four corners of the earth, the four winds comes from the four winds. So here's the four animals from different sections of the earth. So I think so. All right, verse 9. Ready? We can keep coming back to all this stuff, but let's get the whole. I mean, we're almost done with the chapter, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Come on.
Let's finish this. Whenever the living creatures give glory, honor, and thanks to him who sits on the throne and who lives forever and ever, the 24 elders fall down before him who is seated on the throne and worship him who lives forever and ever. They cast their crowns before the throne, singing, "Worthy art thou, our Lord and God, to receive glory and honor and power. For thou didst create all things, and by thy will they existed and were created." So what is this throne room thing doing? What's the point of this chapter around the throne? If we were to summarize it in a sentence.
Praising the Holy One?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Hallowed be thy name.
Yeah, hallowed be thy name. Good, yeah. Right? I mean, this is what it ends with, this
Power.
climax, it's beautiful, holy, 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 thrice holy, same as Isaiah. Right? It's all about praising him. And whenever something happens, everybody stops and praises him. Whenever they give glory and honor to him who's sitting on the throne, then the 24 elders fall down and they also cast their crowns before the throne and sing, "Worthy are you, Lord and God, to receive glory, power, and honor, because you created all things and they exist for your." Like we've just seen, the creation is around him, the elders are around him in the circle, right? All these things, and every time one begins to praise, then all the other ones, they cast their crowns. What does that mean, to cast their crowns before God?
Like
Submit.
they give their allegiance.
Shows his authority over them.
All right, that's
He
good.
is higher than their crown, so to speak.
Yes.
Humility, like not deserving of reward.
Okay. Yeah, we don't deserve this.
Submit.
Submission. Yep. So honoring the one above them more. Now remember, they're supposed to get crowns, right? That's been the goal all along. That they would sit on the throne, right? We talked about all this last week. That's what we've been waiting for, is for Edmund, Peter, Lucy, and Susan to get to Cair Paravel and take the throne. This is what we've been waiting for since Genesis 3, when Adam said, "No, thank you. I'll choose my own path. I don't want to be subservient like this. I'm going to make my own way."
You're like, no, we've been trying to get back on the throne. So now they get the crowns. So here's a question that I want to keep bringing up throughout this book. Is this something that is going to happen? Like he's seeing a vision of the future? Or is he seeing a present vision of something that's happening? Or is he writing about, if it's not an actual vision and it's a more literary vision, is he writing about something current or something that's going to be happening? Are they now seated around the throne and throwing their crowns forward? Like these are the 24 elders, right? Which represent who?
Israel.
Israel. And
And the apostles.
the apostles, probably, right? A combination, the representatives for all the church from all ages. Right? 12 and 12, 24 altogether. Okay, so they've given all this is going forward. They're in awe. They sing holy, 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 right? You know, it's the first song in every hymnal. Holy, holy, holy. So is this something that's happening present? Or
Could
something
be.
one day do?
Could be both. Could be both.
Could be both. Okay. And some people said yes to what? I heard other people say something. No
I
one
think
knows.
it's foretelling what's going to happen,
Okay.
but I have no clue.
Yeah, and the truth is none of us do, right? We're trying to exegete, think it through logically.
Well,
Right.
you had said last week that John was going into the second heaven or this vision. He's coming up. So it makes me feel like it's something that's happening at that moment where he's actually having a vision.
Yeah, he's at least saying that he's seeing it.
It's written in the present tense.
Yeah. It's not written like I'm seeing a vision of something that's going to happen in the future, but we always read it that way, like it's going to happen. But what if, just play with me, what if the crowns aren't something that we receive later, but that we receive now? And that we take them to him and casting down our golden crowns around the glassy sea, as the holy, holy, holy song says. How would you imagine that you would now get crowns? Is there any situation that might warrant you getting a crown now?
That Jesus has said, I'm his sister and going to sit with him on the throne in heaven.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and Paul uses similar language to talk about, we are now in the heavenlies, seated in the heavenlies with God. Paul says in Christ, that word, that little phrase, in Christ.
What about the inheritance? And then not only that, I was having a conversation yesterday with a gentleman named Kenneth. And Kenneth is so adamant about his relationship and his tie to the tribe of Jacob. And he's like, this is my family. And I'm thinking in my mind as he's telling me this, we should be thinking like Kenneth, like we are a part of God's eternal family. We're grafted in, but the way he was explaining it is like he's actually like his bloodline goes back. He's related. And I'm thinking, shouldn't we all feel this way? Like the sense of like connection with God in that way? Because it tells us this in the Bible that we should be acting as such. We're grafted into Abraham's bosom, and just don't feel like, I don't get that sense from people when they're like, oh, I'm Christian. Like they're not a child of God like that. You should see this guy's in tears. Like I'm a part of the tribe of Jacob. Like he's like boastful about it, but humble in a way. It's like,
Yep. That's that emotional connection is I think that's what I don't know if I should say we should have. Like it doesn't have to be overly emotional, but it should be relational, connectional, right? It's not just a fact out there. It's like real. Yeah, we're in Christ. We're part of the tribe. We're part of the tribe of Jesse, Jerusalem, Abraham, all. So
We have the same dad.
yeah, we all have the same dad. That's right.
So does a prince wear a crown of like what the king? If we're playing, we're related to like the king. So
Right.
I guess I don't know. I'm trying to relate it to your analogy.
Yeah,
Your
so
picture.
remember, we're Prince, anytime when we start using metaphors, we can use them differently. Right? So there's times when Jesus calls us friends, there's times when Jesus calls us brothers, there's times where we are truly like subjects. So we talk about like, I don't want Jesus to be my pal. Jesus is my king. Well, yes, but he's also my friend, right? There are different emphases that we use at different times. So we could say the same thing with a prince. We're a prince in some sense. They were sons of the king, but there's another sense in which we are currently reigning with God. Like that's what we're supposed to be doing. That is, we're supposed to be taking up dominion, even now. That's not something just for the future. Something we're supposed to be living, right? The goal isn't for us to go to heaven. The goal is for us to bring heaven to earth. And we do that by living as truly human, taking up what Adam left off by becoming kings. God gives that offer to all of us, that we are now seated in the heavenlies with him. Ephesians doesn't sound right, but seated in the heavenlies, it's some kind of Paul thought somewhere. Right?
To me-
And we are seated in the heavenlies, like we're there, we're with him. We are now kings and queens, ladies. But
Thank you.
boy,
I
Thank
think
you.
Don was going to say something. I think I heard Don's voice.
somebody wanted to say something? Go ahead.
I was saying what makes sense to me, what little I know about this, is that it's an ongoing thing. So he's seeing things that are happening now, but not with us, with those that have already received their crowns.
Yeah.
And they are constantly throwing them down.
Yeah. So maybe we can get them now, but we can't give them back yet. Right? Because we're not face to face. Lion hasn't laid down with the lamb. Everything hasn't come together, culminated yet. Yeah.
It's us in the process of sanctification on our way to that place.
Yeah. Okay. So now we're talking about like what it means to look more and more like Jesus, which means we're never going to totally reach that spot until, I don't know, maybe heaven. I don't know how all that stuff works. But I wasn't thinking so much about morality and ethics and what it means to look like Jesus, but I think that probably is part of that. So that's a good point, Lori. Our sanctification process. But I think now. Go ahead, Travis.
I was kind of thinking along those lines too. Like, does it have to be some sort of thing that's like some special crown we get later? Or is it just, I've got at my office a wall of Travis's accomplishments, a bunch of certificates on a wall, diplomas and things like that, that one could call crowns. And it's recognizing like, this isn't me that's got all these things. Like everything comes from God. Like lay that stuff down.
That's right.
So
yeah. I think there's something very real to that. Like these are not things that I accomplished. These are things that you empowered me through the Spirit to do. We were able to succeed. So I often pray things like, Lord, wherever I'm successful, help me to notice that it's you that made it this way. It's the whole reason for Sabbath, right? It's to remind us that God is the one who does this, so we don't have to work 7 days a week to make all this work. Even though we think we do, we actually do need to stop and recognize that it's God. So yeah, I think we do get these crowns, and I think we'll have the privilege of throwing them back to him.
But if we have to do it every time the living creatures say, holy, 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 we have to like jump up and grab them and run back and sit down and then throw them again. And then.
Right. Which does make me think that this is not something that is literally happening.
Yes.
Okay? Because we're going to get pretty soon, we're going to say that the souls around, right? The souls are going to cry out. What are they going to cry out, Josh?
Sorry. Holy, holy, holy. Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay, sorry. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is.
Yeah, that's the elders. But remember the souls that are.
Oh, how long, oh Lord?
There you go. How long?
Sorry,
How long?
sorry, dude. I'm trying to. I'm not a good multitasker.
Right. So
Yay.
This is like the
Yeah.
Russian nesting dolls of the awesomeness of God. That's really what it is. Like, it's just like pull off another one, pull off another one. Like, here's the, like, what it's the Russian nesting dolls of the awesomeness of God.
Yeah.
That's
Right. And we're not supposed to take it as if there's really nesting. It's the idea that's coming across. Yep. I think I interrupted Lori. Lori, did you have something to say?
I was just saying yay for constant submission and praise to God.
Good. I'm with you on that one.
How about casting our crowns is like Travis said, people acknowledge us for some things we do or something, and when you turn it around and say, thank you, but this was God's doing, not mine, could that be a casting of a crown, so to speak?
I think it very well could be. Yeah. Yeah. If we're talking about the crowns as being rewards,
Right.
we've got to work on this. We're going to see crowns again. So we'll think through this, whether they are the fact that they have become truly human, like the way that they're supposed to be. True human means royalty, right? Kings. Whether they become kings, or are the crowns rewards for individual actions that they've done. That's what we're going to have to kind of start to determine. And
I want to go back real quick and touch on what you said about bringing a piece of heaven down to earth, because this ethereal concept of like, or this, this conception of being raptured and going somewhere and being taken from the persecution. But this is just, in my opinion, felonious. And I think because we not only are we supposed to bring down a piece of heaven to earth, but we're waiting for the coming of kingdom, the new creation to be coming in full, where there'll be a new heaven and a new earth.
Yeah.
So it's like there's
right here in this book. Yeah.
So I'm saying, like, it's all going to come down. It's going to be made brand new. I mean, it's like the omega point at the end of time. This it's the concrescence, the all these fancy things. This explosion, like everything's becoming more and more complex. Things are going faster, and it's going into this explosion of like newness. But
what's that word called? That scientific word that you were just trying to reach for? Does anybody remember it? No. Okay. Sorry. Keep on.
No. Concrescence.
Yeah.
Concurrence.
It doesn't seem right. There's a concurrence.
Concrescence is Alfred North Whitehead. That's he uses that.
Not concurrence. That means agreement.
That's all right. We'll figure it out later. But you guys know what I'm talking about. Anyway, keep going.
Confluence. Nope. No.
blessings. Conversions.
Convergence.
All right.
Thank you. Convergence.
That's all right.
Thank
Convergence. Okay. Keep going, Josh. What'd you have to say?
History is the shockwave that precedes the eschaton. And the eschaton is the end thing. And a play on words would be his story, Jesus's story. His story is the shockwave that precedes the eschaton. And so the eschatological event, the inauguration of the kingdom to come, the beginning of the end, this is all on the cross. And then we are in this end time period, which, we all sense it. That's why we are all like, when someone talks about the second coming, we're like, I'm in, we can all sense it. But obviously, we're not going to be bamboozled by whoever they are, people from the 80s that Travis is having a hard time getting over. It's going to counseling for, but I'm sorry, Trevi. But I'm saying, like, this is like why we fall for that kind of stuff, because we're like, yes, that's it. I feel it. I know he's coming. Like, this is it. A foretaste.
Yeah, it's good.
Just a little taste.
Yeah, foretaste of heaven. Yep,
that's the crown.
Talk about that. Yeah, let me let's talk really quickly about what you're talking about right now, Josh. This idea that that there's going to be a rapture and there's going to be this time at the end and all that stuff that you were just mentioning.
So his story, Josh was talking about how it precedes the eschaton, right? So if we have like Adam and Eve way down here, whatever that means, right? And we have the cross here, and then we keep going. You've seen me do this chart before. And then we talk about a rapture where we go up. And then we talk about things like a millennium, which is 1,000 years. Okay, and then we talk about a coming down later, right? That's kind of the chart as quick as you can kind of make it. And we talk about, like, here we are, I don't know, here, we're near the end times. We're near the eschaton. This has all been his story, right? Which the climax of the cross. This is Paul and John and all of them, and here's Martin Luther, and here we are, and we're like really close to this spot. And we're saying, will the end times, when will they start? Right? That's a general question that we all like to ask. And we're going to see a bunch of this. I just want to keep bringing this to your mind, that we're not waiting for the end times to start. Okay? The end times are not some future thing that we think will come once we reached Y2K, for instance. Okay, well, Y2K is past. We've reached the end times in the last 20 years. Hasn't it been wonderful? Or we're going to reach the end times. Even right now, the Antichrist may have been born. He may be in existence right now, and later on he's going to control Europe and the whole system, economic system, and all that stuff. Okay, when you hear those things, just take them out and be gentle with them. Okay, or with those, your own mind that tells you those things, or other people who tell you those things, but set them aside for the sake of this course when we're talking about this. So you can start to see Revelation fresh, without all of those things entangling you that have been brought onto the book of Revelation, that the book of Revelation says nothing about. And the Bible says nothing about. There are these things that have just been pushed on there that we can't seem to see Revelation without. So any way that you can set them aside for a little while and not think like this, and think of end times begins right here and goes for this whole amount. And I don't know how long it's going to go for. Okay, but in my particular theology, this doesn't exist at all. Doesn't exist. Okay, or if it does, it's right here. This is the 1,000 years that we're talking about. Now, this is all coming in chapter 20. It's a long ways away, but I want to keep getting you there, because that's what you're like, okay, how is this all going to culminate in the rapture and the millennium and stuff like that? This is 1,000 years. And you're like, wait, it's not 1,000 years. It's been 2,022 years so far, or maybe not quite, because Jesus' death is the time, not his birth, blah, 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 whatever, 2,000 years. And this is just a really big number. It doesn't mean literally 1,000 years. It means a myriad. It's a big number. It's a whole lot of time. Okay, so maybe this whole thing is the end times. And we're just waiting not for this to happen, but for this to happen. For God to come down. I don't know if that's right there or if it's right here. And actually, we still have another 10,000 years to go. So if people ask me, when's Jesus come back? I say, I don't know, 1 million, 2 million years, maybe, I'm not sure. Right? But I never say 20, 30 years. Okay, because I want them to think differently. Could he come back in 20 or 30 years? Sure, I don't know, I guess. I mean, I don't think the Bible talks about any of that stuff. It just means it's a long, stinking time. It's already been 2,000 years, and we call this time soon.
When he says call, it doesn't the Bible talk about calling up? He will call us up.
In Thessalonians, it talks about people disappearing in twinkling of an eye.
Right.
So yes, that might be right. And so there is a concept that's out there that will, so I'm willing to think about it like this, right? Like this, that we are raptured into the clouds. If you want to use rapture terminology, go for it. It's not in the Bible, but whatever, okay?
Right.
That we're brought up into the clouds, but the whole purpose would be because God is coming down. He's coming down, we meet him in the clouds, perhaps. Again, metaphorical language, doesn't matter to me whether I actually go up or not. Going up just means ascension, but it could be. We could literally go up into clouds, I guess. Although if Jesus is coming down and we're going up, I don't know what's happening on the other side of the world. But please, we don't have to think about those kinds of things, because if they're going the opposite direction. Because God isn't up, right? God is not up. Okay, that's just a way for us to comprehend things. It's a way for us to think things through. So I'm fine with talking about God being up. Just know that it's not actually true. We can keep going into space to find him. He is omnipresent.
Everywhere. Yeah,
Right.
He's omnipresent. That's correct.
But the idea is that the king, the conquering king, comes into town. So this is the concept back then, is there would be somebody on a wall of a castle, right? And they would be up there and they'd be looking out with their binoculars, something like that. And they would see the person coming, and here's the king, and he's got his crown on, okay, and he's coming back. And the good news, woo, everybody's super happy. And so all the people, the drawbridge goes down, right? And so all the people come running out, and he comes this way. And then they all together, him and all of his posse who comes after the Great War, comes back into town. So they do come out, or they do go up, but it's only to meet him so that they can come down.
Okay.
Okay, that's the idea. But again, I don't want to literalize it. So even though I've changed maybe your thinking on it for a moment, whether you agree or not doesn't matter, but I've changed your thinking about it. I don't want you to be thinking about people actually going up and down and like all this. This is an image of meeting the king. I don't know what's actually going to happen. John isn't probably trying to tell you what's literally actually going to happen. Just as he's going to give you these great images of giant pearl gates that you're supposed to go through. I don't think there are giant pearls, okay, that you can actually go through the gates that are made of pearl. Can you imagine the size of whatever that, what is it, an oyster that makes a pearl like that? That would be a freaky, crazy, like those things don't exist. Oh, they do in heaven. All right, I don't know. But the point, that's not the point, right? The point is that it's something precious and beautiful. Streets of gold? Why? Why? Does God just like showing off? It's wealth, it's extravagance, it's the most beautiful thing that you can imagine. And so these are the way that he tells stories throughout the book. That's what I wanted to get across. His story. That's what prompted Josh saying. His story comes before the eschaton. This is the way his story is being told to get you to the place that is the end times, which you are already in and you were in. Paul talks about this. He talks about you being in the end times already. Okay, so we are currently in the end times, and we were in the end times 2,000 years ago. The end times is that new phase of life that happens post-resurrection. So there was this way, this is the old phase, and this is the new phase. Okay, and you might argue that there's a whole other phase here.
Yeah.
And that we are leaning into this one.
Post-millennium, so to speak.
Yes, post-millennium. If this is the millennium, these 1,000 years right here, that's after, when heaven comes to earth. And the things that we do now feed into that new world. They're like practice, but they're not really practice, they're reality. But we're practicing now what the world will look like later. It's going to look like this perfect vision, this beatific vision. And our job here, before we get here, is to make this, pull a little bit of this eschaton into our world.
Why then do some people get so worked up about, rapture, premillennial, postmillennial?
No. We won't talk about any of those things, because I don't think any of those things are in the Bible.
Yeah.
And I'm going to show you as we talk about this here, and you're going to try and fit it in, not you, but us. We're
Yeah,
going to try and fit it into our theology because it's what we grew up with.
right.
What we just see when we read fiction or we watch Nicolas Cage.
Movies or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, or whatever's left behind is stuff going on. But
Yeah.
it's
And
not there.
even commentary, on the TV, people that, teach Bible on TV, or teach scripture on TV, they talk
Yeah.
about it.
That goes into my point. I was going to answer your question and say it's good publicity. It's good. It's a good sales pitch. I mean, like, who doesn't want to hear this stuff? Like, yeah, it's gonna come in soon. Like it's something to sell. And to be honest with you,
puts butts in the seats.
it's like the prosperity gospel. It's like, why do people? It's not at all what the Bible says. In fact, it says if you follow Jesus, you're going to be persecuted. It's like total opposite. But they said no. They're going to go off this. If you, maybe I'm assuming they're going off. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. It's like, I don't know. The prosperity gospel. Why does that exist? Because it's a good sales pitch.
Right.
And my every time I go up to behind the pulpit, it's such an opportunity to hopefully nudge somebody. And I want to make those who are comfortable a little uncomfortable, and make those who are uncomfortable a little bit more comfortable.
Yep.
And proclaim, because and you taught me this actually. You made sure you were adamant. Our job is to proclaim, and that's it.
Yep. Proclaim the good news. Wound people who need to be wounded, heal people who need to be healed.
They're great organization building tools. If you start one organization with that and you start another organization saying you need to love your enemies and you're going to get persecuted, guess how many people are going to get in line for each one?
Yep. I much prefer the beautiful sales pitch of my life being way better. Yep. Or in this case, waiting to go to heaven. Like, that's much easier. I could just say, I'll just forget all this stuff because I'm going to go to heaven soon and everything's going to be great.
You got to say like 4 words and then you're good. But as long as you say 4 words, then you can just wait.
Are the 4 words I believe in Jesus?
Yeah. So, yeah, sure. That sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's dunk you in water just to make sure, and then you're good.
Yep.
Well, pain,
3 words.
if pain is the touchstone of spiritual growth, and you look back in your life, just to say if you've lived a little bit of life, sometimes during the hard moments of your life, you're like, gosh, this is hard and I can't take it. But then you look back and like, those are some of the most like you had the most life, like you were actually living when you were struggling. And it's like this weird paradox that like pain, whatever that was.
So you can't grow without conflict. Astronauts have to like strap on to a treadmill in space and like walk a certain amount every day, because otherwise your muscles atrophy because there's no gravity. So they have to like strap down and do exercises because you die without conflict. So
in Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian, he says, and don't quote me on here because I'm just playing around with that. God, war is God.
War is God?
Yeah, it's not a good. I'm just that goes deeper, and I'm not saying it's weird. What makes us made in God's image is we like smile, we laugh, we get angry. I'm not sure if these are things that and don't quote me because I'm not saying that war is actually God. That was from a book. I don't think that's not what I believe. I'm just saying I was joking with what Travis was saying. But it seems as if civilizations, when you have a civilization, say if you believe, the human race has been around for, a couple 100,000 years, however long they've been around. And a small slice of that have been civilized. We've been civilized. Okay. Now, war only starts to happen when we have civilizations, when we have the haves and have-nots. And so you have this constant turmoil, this conflict,
Okay.
and yeah.
Now I've finally made the connection between what you and Travis are saying. I've made the connection.
Yeah.
I don't know where.
You get me nervous when I look at you, dude, because I lose my train of thought. I'm like, am I making sense? Am I just
No, I wasn't following where you were with all this because we're talking about God is war, and I don't know where that connected and all that. But
I don't know what this conflict is what drives civilization. So we're actually like, okay, muscles atrophy if you don't use them.
Yeah.
Civilizations, why are we the best civilization, or why is America the top dog? Look at our
Yeah.
military. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Because we never had a war on our soil for like a really long
Yes,
period.
What-
All right,
what-
okay, let's move. All right, it's 9:17. If you want to follow, you want to wrap up in 30 seconds, Josh, go for it.
What,
You want
this is war is not God. Okay, God, the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven is where we'll hunger and thirst no more. Will there be no more mourning? There'll be no more tears. This is like the way that civilization, or maybe not civilization, but humanity, the true human in Jesus Christ, he showed us how to live. So please, if I feel convicted that I even said that, because that was Cormac McCarthy that said that in a book called Blood Meridian, and it's really a good book. But it's just what God is, something that is incomprehensible and ineffable. But in my opinion, he became human in the form of a man named Jesus Christ, and the kingdom that he represents is something that looks totally different from what the world looks like. The world looks like war and conflict, but his kingdom is well, we will hunger and thirst no more.
All right. And we're going to talk about that because this is the kingdom that he's talking about, but we can pull it into this. Right? There doesn't need to be war anymore. There doesn't need to be any of that stuff. We can end that. It's just a matter of what you guys are doing. All right. Thank you all. It's 9:18. Good night.